How would you like to get between 15 to 22, if not 25% of my business funding value earned given to you that you can use for your startup or your non-startup to continue to help you grow and expand and use it in various ways? Hi, this is Michael with Viral Funding Solutions. I'm a business funding expert, or you could say a business loan broker expert, who's been able to help a lot of businesses. Gratefully, I'm very appreciative of helping out many people as a human first, and then in their business and businesses get the right type of financing under the right strategic partnership and roadmap for longer term success. I work with all various types of business owners in different industries. I've funded very many of them, and I help out with all types of services. From the very top, you have like the SBA loans, but it depends on the perspective of that client and where they want to get to. It might be a different service. All the way to the bottom with startup funding, and then just below that, you have the business structure, like a business plan, putting the entity together, the incorporation, articles of organization, your EIN, having an EIN letter, and all of these other components of it, to personal and business credit and separating them. And so no further introduction. In this video, I'm going to get into a few details on how you can earn a percentage of what I get from clients, so that way you can use it to fuel your business or for whatever it is you need to use it for, just by referring others to me as an expert to help your client or clients get the right type of funding. Because there's a lot of people out there that hype this stuff up. They overpromise, they underdeliver. They're very overwhelming, especially when you're trying to look for sources. Is this best for me? Are they trustworthy and reliable? With me, you don't have to worry about that. I'm a very loyal, cerebral, introverted type of person. It's hard for me to be here even on video. I'm more of a blog type of person, although I've created a lot of video content. I've learned the skill set. I run a digital marketing agency, lead generation business as well, the health affiliate marketing business in that space. I've been running these for a long time before I got here. Other verticals in the affiliate space, other ventures. Now, this is my primary focus. I've been doing for a while now as a business funding, business loan broker expert. I'm in the trenches every day with those lenders, with those underwriters. I know what they are really looking for. In fact, I know how to pre-underwrite a file very well on the 3 C's of capital: credit, cash flow, collateral. You either have one of these three, two of these three, or all three. And I look at maximizing your potential around one or multiple now and in the future, whatever makes most sense now and what could come of it later on. If none of that, then we work on business credit through trade credit, installment credit, then moving into revolving credit, depending on where you are positioned. Even if you are a non-startup, because I have a lot of business owners who don't have their business credit established, or they think they do because they just set up a Dun & Bradstreet account in a few of the other credit bureaus. But in fact, you haven't been building any kind of payment history, anything that helps your business stand alone. How strong is that payment history? How many payments have you been making? What's reporting? Do you have a sufficient FICO SBSS business liquid credit score to help you later on get those SBA loans, those online bank term loans, online bank lines of credit, etc., and so forth? So I'm here to help you every step of the way. You have a trusted person in your corner. Think of this like Rocky Balboa going into the ring, and he's got his corner, the guy who's putting the towel over his forehead, taking off the sweat, giving him some water, giving him some tips and what to do to go back in there, because he's been in the ring himself. Or if he hasn't, but I've been in there, I've funded my businesses and so forth. And so on this part, I want to get into now what the percentage of it could look like. So in case you can't get funding for yourself, or you can, but you'd want to refer someone, I'm more than happy to help and get you compensated for that. And so here I have just a quick little document that I sent for somebody the other day, and gave them the expectations of how much they could get and what it depends on. So I usually give around 15 to 22%, sometimes up to 25% if it makes sense, but not usually. For me to give you 25%, and you're thinking, well, I got to make this 50%, 75% to make it worth it sending you. You have to understand how all of this process works. The amount of work that I have to fulfill on myself and my team, and I mean looking at the documents, analyzing them, going through them very well. And it's not always just bank statements. It could be a client who's trying to do an online bank term loan where I need to do a further cash flow analysis, look at profitability, EBITDA. I have to factor more on free cash flow and a few other things, and then get this all submitted, the application, the package, communicating with my lender, the provider, my team, etc. So and there's more steps and it goes through the underwriting process and more that I have to convey and share with you. So you have to understand all of the legwork that I am doing for you, so you don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to go and learn these skill sets and say, hey, how do I read a P&L? Well, those are things as a business owner, if you don't know now, you should understand in time, especially if you're trying to buy a business. That's one that is going to take more extensive work. It doesn't happen within a month. It doesn't even happen within 2 months. You're expecting that to be without between 1 to 3, if not outwards of 3+ months to try to do something like that. 3 to 6 months even to try to make sure you find the right business and what's the criteria to go for. I'm not going to get into all that right now. But I can help you with that, sometimes up to 25% if it makes sense, but that 15 to 22% adjusted, that 15% can sometimes come down a little bit. It also depends on the type of service. So if one gives you more, then there might be, and the amount of legwork that it takes to, that's what you also have to look at, and the size of it and the funding value. But I'm very reasonable and generous in what I give people and the amounts. So if you're somebody who needs funding, perhaps you're not in position to, or you're not financially, or your business isn't structurally set up right, or you can get funding, but you would like to have somebody else look at everything and make sure it looks clean. Make sure that when they're going through the process, they're not wasting their energy and time. And you're like, hey, I got funding through Michael, so I'm going to recommend him. And a lot of people do. And again, I'm very appreciative of, very humble. I never take any of that for granted. I'm a Libra, if you guys didn't know this, if that says enough. But I want to be as helpful as possible. So and again, here I said, and it depends on the work amount and so forth that I and my team do. So for example, if I were to get $14,400, for example, given to me, and that's my funding amount of what the original amount was, and goes to another share for the providers, etc. For example, then 20% of that, it's 2,880. 22%, it's at 3,168. So that bump up from 20 to 22% is substantial when you think about your margins. And you also think about what you're getting back and where you're putting that and allocating it to. It could be for marketing and advertising. It can be for another project, for another income generating revenue stream. It can be for a various amount of things, personal things that you need to use it for, to pay bills and do other things. Go out and treat your family and yourself. Go out to a luxury restaurant, or if that's not even your thing, but you do it once and you suit up, or you're nice looking, you go out there, you enjoy a meal, and then you walk away from that feeling happy that, hey, I was able to refer somebody over, and I used a part of that to take my family out, and then I also use a part of that for my business or businesses, or however you best see fit. So what I put here in the rest of this questionnaire is, or in this email, because I've sent this to somebody, here is a form to have them fill out. So what I normally do, if you're questioning what my processes are, I am very punctual and disciplined when it comes to energy and time. It's a pet peeve of mine nowadays that if people waste it. And I don't just give everybody a phone call. That's not how this works. And it shouldn't work if you were on my end, seeing it from my point of view. It's difficult to just get on phone calls every single day when I work with a lot of volume, quality, and quantity of people. And people that I remember, by the way. It's not like, okay, here's the next. No. I remember that person, and I remember their business and what they were trying to do, what they were struggling through, and where they're coming from, and where they're going to if they're not there yet, and where else they're moving to in the future. And so I like to get to know that person as well, as much as I can. And I'm an introvert, so it's hard for me, myself, to open up. You might be the same way, but if at least there's a little bit, and there's just some familiarity and some common ground. But what I do is a step-by-step process. So if you have done this, you'll know what this is about. And if you've heard back from me on this, then you should know or have looked at it and continued forward. If not, probably a reminder from, or you should look at it, or I will get back to you in time. But there's this questionnaire on my site at Viral Funding Solutions that I send you as somebody who's referring another person over, so I can help them get the right type of funding. And so I'll send you this questionnaire, and I can send it to you too if you need funding. And so what I'll have you do, and I'll click it right here, it'll send you to a landing page that I created. And you can select from one of the two options. Keep in mind that if the page does change the way it looks, it could be different. But it says here, get the funding your business needs fast with the help from a real expert. By the way, I also do real estate financing. So for any of you who are real estate investors, I'm doing a lot of right now. It's actually a very huge booming market, believe it or not. There's selective deals out there, location. There's a lot of things that I'm doing with rentals, fix and flips. Commercial properties right now are huge. And why is commercial property one of the bigger ones right now? It is because, not because of location and all of this stuff, that's one part, and there's other things, leases and all these other things you can factor in, but because revenue-based and credit-based are becoming even harder now to borrow money from. It's only stretching the dollar out as much as you can. The value from that dollar is not great. And so it's like you have a bar of gold that you cut into 1,000 pieces. You have $1,000 worth in value, but what if you cut that same bar of gold into another 1,000 pieces? Still weighs the same or still holds the same weight. Now it's just cut into another 1,000. You think it's $2,000, but it's still that same bar of gold. You don't have another bar of gold that is more in value and more in amount. So you're decreasing the amount that you actually receive by taking funding initially. And so what happens is you need more of it because it's not taking you far enough anymore. In our economy and where we are and things that are happening right now, I see it in a lot of businesses in my community, outside of my community, nationwide, etc. It goes on and on outside of that. And so you just have to think about, well, credit. Well, you already need to have good credit, and there's a reason why you don't have good credit. And I know all of those reasons. I've seen all of those reasons. I know all the reasons why you could get declined. I'm not going to get into them all now, but if you would like to know what those credit-based, collateral, cash flow-based, equity, liquidity-backed type of funding options are, microloans and more, then there's this questionnaire here. So if you'll click one of the two buttons, you can look through this page. If you scroll down, how it works. There will be some results that I put on this page. There are plenty more, but I only put a handful of them there. And then it's your money. Go ahead and claim it before it's too late. When the markets are constantly changing, you can see the interest rates constantly changing for specific services more than others too. And when the prime rate is factored into an additional amount, so prime rate plus 1 to 2.75, prime rate plus 2.75%, depending on what you're amortizing, one, depending on the service, second, and a few other things. So when the markets are consistently changing, it can make getting funding for you much more difficult and harder for you to predict. Although I am here to help you, and I'll go to the comments in a second. Appreciate you. Thank you, Gabriella. How can you learn? I'll actually go through it now. Like you are right now, going through this content, and I'll get into a few things on what you can pick up here in a second. And I put here in parentheses, look at what's happened with the quote-unquote SBA EIDL funding and even the quote-unquote PPP funds gone. The Employee Retention Credit Program, 2024 and 2025, it won't be around for too long. We don't think there will be an extension. We haven't heard of anything like that. Will it come back after it's been closed? Don't treat it like the EIDL loan where you're like, well, I wish I would have taken advantage of getting a refundable payroll tax credit up to $26K per employee. And the math and the numbers, I've done all that. It does make sense per year. 2020 and 2021 eligible quarters for those. I won't go into much in depth, but just know that if you have W-2 employees, you went through a government mandate of several ones. There's some things there. You have started a business after a specific date if it's a newer startup, but if it's not a startup and you started before that time, you're still eligible. If you got the PPP funds, you could still be eligible for this one as well. A few other things on reduced gross receipts and a few other things to look at. And so here, and you'll lose your funding opportunity and chance to put the money back into your business to make it work for you. Do you want to be, I don't ever want to be that person who's telling you like, hey, you can't get this or you've been declined. And I'll tell it to people in like an email or in a text, like I don't ever want to have to do that over a call. If it makes sense to for the relationship or for whatever is there and has to be over that, then okay. But we have to think about, hey, I don't want to be, I'm like an introverted person here who's like, I don't want to tell them, but I have to. And there's a lot of people in this space who are very negative, very negative. And I can see it in their tonality by the way they just respond back to an email, or text message. I could tell who they are as a person. I could tell their character. Although it may be because they're stressed out. I've tried everything. I get it where you're coming from. I've been there. It's hard and you're just trying to find something that works. But if you're not fixing the diagnosis and you're consistently just trying to find these 0%, no doc, Wells Fargo's or whatever US banks, or if that's even available, because it's not always and it's hard, you still have to supply a few things and go through a few rounds of things with other forms. So you have to understand what you're getting involved with. Do you want to be that person sitting on your couch or sitting on the bench, on the sidelines, living in regret, thinking to yourself, what if? Or would you rather be the person who said, I did it? that I took that risk, I took that chance on getting initial funding, even though it wasn't all that I wanted, or I wasn't sure about how to even go through it, and just doing your due diligence, because I'm the same way. I'm very cerebral. And so if somebody asks me to do something that I know isn't right, I won't do it. And so you have to be careful about in this space who you trust. You can trust me. I'm very loyal. Like I said again, I'm not here to do anything that's against you. I'm here for your best interest at heart, and so forth. And so here's a little bit more about what I put on my little short form of a bio. You can learn more about the how-to process. And if I click one of these buttons, it says non-startup business funding with 3+ months in business, startup business funding with less than 3 months in business, plus you will get a free 6-step pre-approval lending checklist. Why me though? Let me cover that very quickly. Aside from Viral Funding Solutions being in a position where I'm at here, it's most of experience, and this is my company, by the way. The experience, the versatility, the flexibility, the loyalty, and more that comes with that, it's unmatched. I see a lot of these others who are trying to provide you with funding just because they have a huge advertising budget, or just because they've been around long enough doesn't mean that they are in your best interest. You have to question who that person is, who's behind it, and what type of funding am I actually getting? What are the parameters to it? Detail per details. And I can share with you things that are not even publicly released. That's what I do in this questionnaire. But why me per se? Without going too much into my own story, aside from, like I said, having the multiple businesses, I was once a 9-to-5 employee, and I don't like thinking this far back as often as I once used to. But in my later roles, in my younger 20s, I was in a financial logistics position, and I couldn't get paid more. I was immensely underpaid. Undervalued, you could say, although they made you feel like you weren't. But I was in a role where I was doing a lot of data, budgeting, spreadsheets, shipping and receiving kind of stuff. But I was on the computers a lot in that space, doing things, ordering things, going through things, and actually lifting media boxes for a huge contracting company servicing HP&P South. So there was a physical component to it, and I'm not a physically gifted person. I don't know if you've been able to see, there's a jacket here, but when you see my physical build, my dad, my parents weren't like that, my younger brother as well. But I was once a Division I soccer player, if that says something to you, in the center midfield position where I usually run a lot. So what that tells you is, I've always had this, and I've always had this. I just had to strengthen it even more and build this up even more. And in business, as you build that, you get better at your craft, because your personal comes into your business. It does. Character matters a lot. And it also dictates our process, whether there's going to be friction, will there be resistance, none of it, some, how much, can we eliminate that, and more. Can we leave that out the door if there's somebody who's stubborn, ignorant, cocky, hard-headed, arrogant? Can we leave that out the door? Or are we going to bring that in, and that's going to be a problem to myself and my team? These are not problems I'm solving. They're based on attitude and effort. They're based on the character of the individual. So if you're already disloyal, untrustworthy, unaccountable, irresponsible, you could already tell where you're going in all of this. And you're just trying and trying, but you don't get approved. Why don't you get approved? Because you're going after the symptoms rather than the diagnosis, whether you know what it is or not. I'm like a doctor prescribing what is it that you have to do. What are your problems? How do we overcome those problems, those pain points, those questions, those roadblocks, those obstacles, to then get to those outcomes, or that outcome, those results. See, I didn't say how do we get from here to just here's the funding service. How do I get from what current problems you are facing? What is it that's the major problem? Is that really the one? Can I uncover more? And what is it that's having you seek funding right now? I have 2 contracts set in place. My cash flow is here right now. I just took out one. I lost 3 clients, and I'm in a position of dire constraints. See, without constraints, there is no movement. Without any secondary constraint, there is no primary movement. And so without getting into systems and math, because I love that subject, I didn't say this, I went to school, Division I soccer, and I studied a bit of sociology, moved into chemical engineering for a little bit, tried to study that. And then I saw the market and I wanted to get into business administration. So then I went into that for good reasons. Favorite class being chemistry. Love calculus, love the math. That's how my mind is geared. But all that said and done, I come from a place where I value hard work. I value all of these things. And before the financial logistics position, I was working with the construction manufacturing company. And this was actually in the field. It wasn't like I was just given the cubicle. Here you go. Here's the blueprint room. Go look at the drawings and determine the dimensions of this. Eventually, I got into that with manufacturing for a little bit. But I was working the machine in an aerospace company, the Headerman, pumping out tooling over and over, working with chemicals, moving from one place here, and then getting into a final position there. And then later on, evolving, but I had worked in previous roles like warehousing, and I worked in, like, I was a ramp agent at some point. Literally doing this wasn't fit for me. Some of these other positions weren't even fit for me, but you got to learn these things, and sometimes you have to put yourself in those vulnerable positions. Not everything is linear, and you learn about the industry. I got connected with the owners. They actually started bringing me into the boardrooms. They actually started bringing me into their office, and we were collaborating and putting our minds together and coming up with some drawings, putting some things on the board. And I was putting things together on their systems and what they should do to improve this. How could we work on that better, and so forth. But all that said and done, I've been there, and I had to go in that financial logistics position, went down under, and so I had to go back on unemployment benefits, food stamp cards again. And it was out of my control because they were relieving 50 plus people from HP, from our positions, and other. There were more companies within that building, and so I had to be preparing for starting something. And without going into the step-by-step of how it came about, just know that at that time, I started building out the whole digital marketing agency lead generation before I had to go on unemployment again. I could have gone to another position. Yes, I could have done more certifications. I could have gone and done another semester of a degree. Could I? Yeah, of course. Easily could have done that. But I said enough is enough. I'm seeing how the economy is now. I'm seeing how everything within debt. I'm seeing what people are doing to better themselves, get more time freedom is eventually what I wanted. I get that the money helps fuel that and more, but I would really wanted was the time freedom. That's what I was searching for, and not the whole 9 to 5. Like, I'm back from work, I'm like family, and like you have this not like bad attitude necessarily, but you just have this, oh, I'm tired and now I got to go out to an event. And instead, why couldn't I work for myself and take time off, maybe an afternoon, or leave early for the weekend and go have fun, but know that my business is running smoothly and doing things efficiently. But you have to put the work. And so at that time, as I went on unemployment benefits, food stamp cards, it felt very bad because I didn't want to go to the grocery store as much as I had to and pay with my EBT card. I couldn't lock eye to eyes with the cashier. At times I would, but it was hard to. Introverted me, cerebral me, just, thank you. And I didn't want to continue to be a letdown to my family. I didn't want to continue to feel like I couldn't go out and pay for a meal, or feel like even them getting the satisfaction from that. Like, me is one thing, but them, and even though I could put my part in it, it just wasn't always enough. And I was always like, pinch. That's who I am. I'm very like old at heart, and I'm an old soul. That's really who I am. You could say, and a lot of people would say this, and I say this very gratefully and humbly, that I'm wise at my age. I've been through a lot in my younger 20s. Educated, but I went through a lot of seeing the world. I saw a lot of different things. And so, as quiet as I am, I want you guys to know that sometimes we fall into a place that we don't know how to get out of. We need those resources to help us. We need resourcefulness. And if you can't attach yourself to that, that's what's going to make all of this even more difficult. And you have resources, you're just not leveraging them enough. You're not thinking on the edge. You're just thinking outside of the box. See, it takes more than just thinking in and outside. You got to look at the edge of that box. You really do. You have to look at the four corners. Is it a rectangle? Is it just a box? Are we working with an octagon? You maybe have to circle around those 4, 5, 6 edges and those corners and prime yourself. And so that's where I started to prepare for a lot of this. Now, let me get back into this here. But I was going, like many of you, away from that pain and trying to get into like the pleasure of time freedom. And yeah, the money helps, and I was looking for more of that. But I was doing it the right way, by providing you with value, expecting nothing in return. And a lot of people think, well, you could just continue being the information guy. And that's not the case all the time. Because I have to be protective of my energy and time and make sure somebody is serious. I have to really check those boxes and see if that person is going to come to terms with what they need to do. A lot of people, they say, hey, I'll send you people, I'll send you like right now I could go through my inbox of people who just ignore me, and not because of my character. And again, I don't want to be that person having to email you. Like, they put me in a position where I have to now, or I don't have to bother with them. But they took it upon themselves to say, hey, Michael, I'm willing to help you and send people over, and I'm more than happy to help you and them. But again, does that mean that I trust you and that you will, and you would do it timely? See, what this does is you have to show me. Prove it with your actions. Say less with your words. I took out time from somebody when I was getting my tooth extracted, and there's going to be an implant. Here's the thing. I had a dentist appointment today, and my voicemail is full. I get a lot. And so it's clearing it, going. Got to understand. And then other numbers, of course. But I got text messages that I had an appointment today. So I went into the appointment early, checked in. The lady said a few words. Where's this going? And she told me that it's rescheduled for, I think, what's now the 6th. Oh, well, I didn't get that. And then I was looking through my text messages, and it just told me the appointment reminder. I didn't see anything else. But they should have got in contact with me in a numerous amount of ways too. I get that. Voicemail, I didn't answer. It happens. But if you're sending out a text message reminder, it's better to send it, hey, can you populate that in the field somehow and send it out? That says, hey, we would have to reschedule. We tried getting a hold of you, the email. So there's ways that a business can evolve, and that would save people a lot of energy and time. And I told the lady, hey, it's okay. I got me out of the office for a little bit. So right here, get the funding your business needs fast. You'll fill out this questionnaire. It could take you less than a minute. Give me some rough estimates, fill it out, lands in my email inbox. I evaluate, analyze, and then I pre-underwrite the file. I'll send it in an email/PDF format with your best funding option and options thoroughly broken down. You can even reuse this. A lot of people love it because you can reference it. I had a lady the other day said she's going to come back to me, and because she couldn't qualify for credit, but she has my PDF. And she goes, ooh. And she knows that she can reuse that and look at it and go, man, if I wish I had this earlier too. And a lot of people think like that. And they go, I wish I would have known about that before instead of just trying to apply anywhere and everywhere, just trying to figure it out on my own. So that'll be there for you to look at. Excuse me. And then there should be like a thank you page video that more or less walks you through my processes. If it's not there, it could be something else. Let me go through the comments now. Not necessarily. Is it an SBA loan? It could be. The up to $2 million is more of an advance/term loan. You could call it a merchant cash advance. You can call it a hybrid cash advance alternative, which is different because it can encompass all revenue coming into the business instead of credit card statements and those receivables. Then we look at all coming into the business of what you're putting into that account or accounts. Have one primary account you are depositing into. It's what's most important depending on the types of deposits and how you collect and what you distribute in. That's another topic for another time that I can spend a lot of my energy and time on, but mostly it's for those advances and their shorter terms, 4 to 24 months. They do come with more medium to higher rates, but that should be less of a concern. Your primary concern is how you use those funds. So somebody who says, well, I'm getting 38% interest or 1.38 factor rates, and it's not amortized as a traditional business loan, so you can't say it's like a 38% interest. Over a year, you might be able to look at that a little bit more, 12 months plus, but that's not how they're amortized. It's based on getting an advance based on your future receivables, and they get a portion back depending on those sales and revenue and what you're generating back to the lender from the merchant yourself, or you can say that in vice versa. But yeah, that's how it works. And your primary reason for taking this, you should look at your return on investment. A lot of you just bite into things emotionally. You go, well, I'm in a constraint, and if I take this, I'll be out of it. I can pay this back in a month, but you really shouldn't have taken it. Or yes, you had to, and you know it would have been very helpful. You would be in a better position just taking a temporary setback in perhaps cash flow to then later on evolve that cash flow. It just depends on how much you make with what you get. And sometimes things come up in the business that are out of your control. There can be a lot of things that are in your control, but that tends to happen a lot. Just understand that. Does anybody have any questions before I get going? Again, just to recap, if you guys are willing to get a percentage by just referring anybody you have over and I can help them out, that's a way to do it. Or you yourself could try on your own to do this and learn it. But if you already have an existing business and you don't plan to add anything more, or at least at this moment, and not build all this on your own and try to build things like that, then you can also send them over and I'll help them out and I'll give you your percentage. I'm more than happy to, depending on what you want to do. If you're okay with not doing that, if you're okay with doing that, or however you best see fit, but I want to help you. And if this is going to be something that you can use, even if it's a small percentage of it, and it's very reasonable, like I said, and it'll help you grow in many ways, it's a win-win. And you have to think about the volume, the funding type, the amount that somebody could potentially get funding, what your percentage of that could be, and various factors. Thirty more seconds. Hi, Diana. How are you doing? We're at the end, and so what I covered is if you or you have somebody else more so in this video who needs funding, let's say you have a referral, because a lot of people will do this. Maybe they can or can't get funding or have received funding already, and they go, hey, Michael, I'd like to connect you with Aubrey, with Jason. And so if you have somebody who needs funding in whatever capacities those are, they need direction in this startup and non-startup, I'm more than happy to help. I'm a very loyal, trustworthy person. You don't have to worry about me. I'm very energy and time efficient. I do more than what I say. That's the type of person I am. And so if you have somebody that needs funding or yourself, then you can send over. And then what I'll do normally is put things together for you, like a little package for you in an email, like I did for somebody the other day. And I just told them what the percentages are, 15 to 22%, if not sometimes up to 25%, if it makes sense, but not usually. Depends on the volume, depends on the relationship, depends on how much you're bringing in, depends on the service, depends on the funding amount, the work that I have to do myself and my team, because it could be a lot. Reviewing docs, going through all the processes and how I communicate. But what I've done is, like for this individual, is I sent them a few questionnaires. I can send more than two. Like there's one for business funding. There's one for real estate investing if you have property or somebody else does. Perhaps you're trying to do a cash out refinance, a sell leaseback situation. Maybe you have property or you know somebody that does. And this is the next part actually that I want to go on. I know I said 30 seconds. This is one I want to close on, but let me go here first. I'm doing really good. Thank you. I like how you put the word you. See, I catch on to these things. I'm a very observant, patient, old man. Oh, that's not what I meant to say. Really, I am. But as a cerebral, this is what you're going to love working with me with. Because I'm doing a lot of, like, when they call the silent partner, I'm pretty much like that silent partner. I like to be the guy behind the scenes who does all the system engineering, the iterations, the A/B split testing, all of this stuff. I can do a lot of the front end stuff, as I still do. But what really pleases me, or what really excites and lights me up, is those components and putting my focus on a lot of that. And so me being able to pre-underwrite a file, I could do very well. But the next part of this that I want to cover is equity and liquidity, but getting a credit partner. So yeah, you could always refer somebody else who's in better position. Let's say if they're looking for credit based, or if they don't know what they're getting yet, they were expecting a business loan, but their credit is better, their revenue isn't there, they don't have the collateral, they don't have other components, maybe a micro loan, peer-to-peer lending, they're going to take too long, they might not work. Grant opportunities, we know those take a long time, they come and they go. They can't get traditional big financing, private investors for other scenarios, and their list I can go on and on about all this. I can connect you with angel investing, the list goes on and on. Venture capitalists, I can go on and on again. But you could say then, well, if they're looking for funding and they have the credit, okay, well, can I take a percentage of what they could earn from what they're getting? if they don't have a business, but they're more than willing to help me by them leveraging their own credit to apply, and then later on try to potentially do a balance transfer, although not always. Not always does everybody do that. But you can get somebody else who can help guarantee you that funding, whether it's a personal term/installment loan, you have the personal lines of credit, you have the personal and or business credit cards, even at 0% interest for 6 to 18 months on those business credit cards. Well, you can't get something from Wells Fargo, you don't have that. You can't get something from US Bank, Chase Bank. All these things start happening and you go, why can't I not? You should start asking, how can I? See, once we know why can't I, we have to start asking, how can I? And not everybody's always giving the right reasons for why they can't receive funding. Not always can all these underwriters give you that information. A lot of them give me more information because I have that personal and business relationship with them as opposed to others that they're willing to go a little bit more deeper with and help out. So they could then say, hey, I'm going to apply for Diana and I'm going to help them get a personal term/installment loan. Now, my credit, though, it's 700 and above on all 3 consumer credit bureaus. If everything looks good in the credit, not just the scores, but the reports and the reports, because we're looking at all 3, then we can make a case to say, well, what range, if they have a business that's under 2 years, do they have a business that's over 2 years? And you have to think about that to get these business credit cards from somebody else, nobody probably tells you this. So this is like, I wouldn't call it a pro tip, but that person has to have a business. Are they under 2? If they're 2+ years over, the funding amount can change between 25 to 50,000 plus what you were getting here. So you could potentially get 50 to 75K, but at a minimum, if you had the time in business and more, 75 to 125K is like, dang, 75 to 100K, like, whoa, that's actually 50% plus. And then you start to think about calculating your margins. You start to think about what your P&L, your balance sheet could look like if you don't have that yet. And so putting these pieces together is very important for you guys to succeed. A lot of you guys overlook the whole, well, when I make money, I'll make money, and then I'll start thinking about how to organize my... No. See, when you then have to organize your money, it's really when you're in a pinch. You're like, oh, I got a lot of things to do, but now I got to find somebody to help me with this, or I got to do it myself, and you don't do it accurately. And that's where all the trip up comes. But if you have that person who's willing to help you, and they have a business, and they can show proof of it by articles of organization, EIN letter, and a few more things, then yeah. And then later on, we can talk about other things like authorized user accounts, primary trade lines, authorized trade lines, and all this other stuff. But for now, if that person had that and they can get the 0% interest business credit cards and help you leverage that, and we could also get a personal term/installment loan, so that adds on an additional 50 to 75K or more. So now you're looking at closer to 150 to 200,000, or even if it were just 100,000 and below that, think about $50,000. That's nothing. A lot of you are like, I need 50,000 to start my business. Okay, is it a low overhead, low expense? Are there going to be any hard assets in that business that's going to be eating into your expenses? Any kind of maintenance fees, insurance costs, leasing a building, leasing equipment, helping you without purchasing equipment, and a few things like, what are the startup costs or ongoing costs? What's your payroll looking like? What can we trim expenses with? Can you? For what you need to do. And so there are just a lot of businesses that are not just profitable and more so less cash flow based because they rack up a lot. Inflow versus outflow. Your net operating income. How do you improve those? And so it's all about pattern recognition and understanding those parts without going into each and every part of profitability right now, because I've looked at that per case basis and I've actually helped people improve those. But yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say. Another pro tip too is get multiple credit partners. If you or you can't leverage your own credit, here's a quick pro tip. I only get approved. Let's say I go and apply, I can get more now, way over 100K with my personal credit alone because of what I have, personal and business credit. Also in revenue. Very grateful. Took me a lot of time. Nothing happens overnight. I've worked for it. And so you think about it and go, well, if I can get only 50,000, I need actually 100,000 because 50,000 is going to dry up quickly. Although the term is spread out over 1 to 5, 3, 5, 7 years. I plan to pay this personal loan off sooner, but how can I accomplish that if I don't have additional funds to help cover those costs? Good question. And so whether you get another personal loan to help with that, or you get business funding to help eliminate that, transfer over to your business if possible, then you go, well, I have a credit partner now with stronger credit, age history in her accounts or his accounts. That's what matters a lot. Payment history, aged accounts, all of the stuff, revolving accounts. If you have any charge-offs, bankruptcies, I can go on and on. I know all the reasons why people get declined because I get people declined every single day. I'm not even joking you. More people get declined than approved. More people get declined in any kind of service than they get approved. It's just a sad reality, but that's just the one that it is. And so if you have to work on your EBITDA, your profitability, your cash flow, and all these parts first to then come into funding on whatever that funding source is, that's what I recommend. Or if you've learned the lesson from taking funding or not, and you need to improve on that because of how you deposit and all this, that cash flow you don't have enough of because of how you're set up, how do I fix that? Good question. And so having multiple credit partners, 50-50 here, this person gets 75K, boom, you're getting closer to 200K. Now I bring in somebody who has a business so they can look at getting business credit cards if possible. Boom, they're helping me out. Another person with business credit cards, boom, helping me out. Now, what you can also ask of that person, and this is also probably a combination of, is doing equity-backed, cash-out refinances. How many of you in here have commercial real estate or investment real estate that you own? So with these proposed assets, whether you have or not, and you know somebody, like right now, it's such a hard market. But I have people right now who keep coming back to me and go, I'm not the primary borrower. Well, I will be borrowing, but I'm also guaranteeing this, and I'm helping somebody else so they can purchase a business or they can clear up some debt. They can purchase more real estate, more property. They can use this for their payroll. They have a gazebo they want to add. There's so many things that occur that I've seen. And so then you could make the case of saying, well, I have enough equity. What's my loan to value percentage on that? Up to 80%, up to 50% on purchase of land or refinance. Very reasonable. I won't get into the reasons why and all that. But if you have enough equity, well, home is one thing. We don't want to tap into a home first. If that's our last resort, make a calculated decision. Really look at all of the options and list down all the pros and cons as well of pulling equity out of your home. A home equity line of credit, a home equity loan. What are you using those funds for? What will your return on that investment be? But when will it be? That's what you have to ask on that. See, a lot of what we appreciated and depreciated and what we earn more from is our homes. So when you own a home, and if you're collecting rent from, if you're doing rentals and doing all these other things, what are you accumulating in your cash flow? What's your net operating income look like? How fast are you collecting that? Your tenants. There's a lot of things I can get into, but I'm not going to go all that way, especially on real estate right now. But if you have that, you can tap out from. You can go, hey, I could pull out 300. I need 500,000. I can pull out 850,000. Yeah, I really do need 500K. Done. Commercial property for whatever it is you're trying to do, for various reasons, even equipment. All day. Excuse me, and you're acquiring more property with that. Just imagine in time with all that property, those investments, commercial real estate you can tap into. There's even a sale leaseback where the lender will hold on to the title of the property until paid in full, and then you get the amount and you get that back, excuse me. Now that's a little bit more costly. I'm seeing 12 to 15% in interest rates, no further than 5 years, sometimes no further than 2 years in terms. I know how that sounds. You're collateralizing. But you're giving over the title and then get it back. And it depends on the type of collateral. And there are other ones where the lenders are looking at annual revenue requirements of the business. If you don't meet a minimum of $1 million in this market, Other markets are looking at 1.4 to 1.6 million and above. Look at what banks are asking for of a client, not just with assets, for the real estate, for other things that they need funding for and that they can withdraw from. They can't liquidate fast enough. They can't take their money out fast enough. Their money is converting into things that they can't even tap into. The debt ceiling right now. Idle. Like, yeah, there's changes there. But are you going to wait? So somebody buys a share of your business to really help you out, or completely buy you out, or completely forgive this and that, give an extension to this, lower the interest rates? Sure. They're just pulling levers for you to help you get out of your crisis. But a lot of you are just going to continue to just rely on those levers and be on that sinking ship. You even go to the captain. Somehow you went into that room and you're like, Captain, let me help you, and I really need to make sure that this floats. And see, you're just battling now with your internal self. And the captain, or me, I'm looking at, let me take care of this. So you really have to understand the position you are in the market and what opportunities you can seize. Because if you don't, and you're just sticking to those same habits and those routines of like, I'm going to just seek out another microloan, I'm going to seek out peer-to-peer lending, I'm going to see, I have a lot of people right now asking me for equity-backed funding because they have it. And that's the market. I've gone into meetings today and it was so sad listening to somebody say how their client has been getting declined over and over. And I couldn't respond, but I knew the answer to. But I'm busy. Like, I have my listening ears on. Of course, I'm always listening. But I'm working. It was earlier in the morning. I can't just pause what I'm doing just to be in an hour or a 30-minute meeting. At times, I'll just listen throughout because it's open and at the time that it's open. But 30 minutes to me, just sitting in a meeting, watching everybody's screen, or if not, I'm not even on video. I'll be in the chat when I have something to say. But there's this word that I use, there's this wording that I use in Spanish language, and I'm Mexican Salvadorian American. I grew up in Orange County, California. I live in Washington. ¿Pa qué abro mi boca? Meaning, why do I even open my mouth? And I don't. And when I do, it's not in a bad way. It's in a very constructive way in helping someone. But there's some people who are just completely out of it that don't get it. And so this other person who's at a different level than I am, helping them and giving them aid in what they should do. They have situations where people have equipment that they're trying to purchase equipment, or they're like looking for sell-leasebacks, equity to take out of liquidity, any kind of hard assets they can give and convert into cash. And they were just at a dead ends meet. And I go, this is just the lay of the business. This is just the lay of the land. And if I wish I could snap my finger and say it's much easier, I wish it were that way for every one of you, where I could bring you in with 620 credit, although it's not optimized, but the lender is going to help you get 0% interest business credit, or I'm going to help you get 0% interest business credit cards. It's different at that point. We could still do business credit cards, but fair credit, bad credit cards, secured. Which direction are you willing to go? Got it. I'm reading that right now. Oh, I'm not going to say it out loud, but what you told me that the business is doing monthly. What type of business is this for? Got it. On the bad credit. Yeah, what you have to understand is when you bring in a partner to help you get funding, if they're not a percentage owner of the business or businesses, at least 25, 51% minimum less, could be more or less there. You have to understand that both are going to normally be on the application, or however many applicants at that stage. And so if we don't see the other owners on the application, we're going to question that. I've had that happen a lot. People even come to me and go, well, I was working with a broker who told me not to. I clarified it for them and I cleared it up. That person didn't know their stuff, or they were just lying to you just to get this done. That's stupidity. Either way. You can give me any excuse you want. Do it right. And so if that's the case, excuse me, then we may have to go down the credit-based route. What percentage of the business, if any, do they own? In the landscaping? Nice. I've helped out a lot of landscapers, a lot of people in landscaping. And right now it's in demand because of where we are in our season. Where in? Like what part of the, are you okay with saying what state? And with me, guys, I'm not a smooth talker. You guys know, you guys see those, like, I'm not a naturally, like, gifted, or I don't even like to use this word, sales person. I'm not like that. Ugh. Ugh. Like, I just don't look down upon people like that. I'm not saying that, no offense. I come from a different background, of course. I've learned the sales skills, more so marketing, because I run my other businesses, and that's what I then transferred over to this one. And those are great skills to have. And if you do it ethically, other people just, have you guys seen all those ads on YouTube? And I see some of them and I go, I don't you normally do that, but I just, like, in my head I'm thinking, that's not reputable, or that's cheesy, or see, I know how to observe and be very cautious about all these things. Ah, yeah, I'm sure business is booming too if you're in Florida, the sunny state. Got it. Yeah, as long as they have I mean, it's still going to be hard regardless, because the applicants will be on, yeah, the applicants will be on that application, and it'll factor in the lowest credit score. That's just the reality of it. There's no avoiding. If you're doing revenue-based financing, that's normally the reality of it. That your credit, being where it is going to weigh down. And so at your credit range, you won't like this answer. I don't want to be the one to tell you this. And don't look at me like, he's that. No, I'm not that guy. You're looking closer to 4 to 6 month terms with that. If not, pushing it to about 8 months if possible. Sometimes a little bit more, but you're not within that underwriting for the best lenders and underwriters. That's not going to be A tier, even though your revenue is there. It could be your time in business, your industry in demand. But what isn't is what? Your credit. Like, if you've shown us that this is the way you make payments, or this is what's going on, like, every lender is going to be hesitant. And if that too, with revenue already fluctuating, types of deposits, how you're depositing, how frequently you deposit, average daily bank balances have a lot in this market, more than it's ever been. It's been crazy right now. Just have that expectation. If you're looking at revenue based, but if you have somebody else who can help you, and it is your credit partner, this is the cool part about it. That we could do credit-based financing then. That's what I would recommend, because then you're not looking at like 4 to 6 month terms. But how much funding did you need? Because if they have 700 plus, is it on all 3 consumer credit bureaus for the other 2 owners? Regardless, if they have 7, got it. So if it is that, and let's say they have 700 plus on all 3 consumer credit bureaus, we could look at 0% interest business credit cards. Do you have any business credit cards right now? Or your partners? Because if they do, we can make even a better case depending on what cards they already have issued and where we can pull from Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and do it systematically. Okay. Yeah, I would definitely leverage business credit. Like, forget about what I just said with revenue based. because those terms are going to be as not favorable. But with you being in business 10 plus years and them guaranteeing the credit cards, we can also try to add, because this is creative credit-based financing, then we could try to add a personal term / installment loan if it allows us to with those borrower partners. And so let me bring up a few examples just so you know this and I give you better perspective on. And I don't have to bring this up, by the way, but I want you to know I'm serious about all this, that I don't just like say it. A lot of those out there who are commenting on my reels are very bad people. Not all of them, but you could tell which ones have a bad attitude. And I'm going to look at theirs here. So here's one example. So I'm not going to say their name. I'm still working with them. They have had to get TransUnion fraud alerts off. This is very legitimate, and I have the best providers, myself and my team, that can help you with this. And I've scanned the internet, and I've seen different solutions. I've been there myself back in the time trying to apply for a lot of these, getting funded with some others. And you think about it, and you go, what's best? So here's an example. We could do like a pre-qualification. It's not a hard pull. It's a soft pull. Doesn't affect your credit. And so I just sent, after we reviewed, then I followed up with this particular individual, as I've done with most. And I said here, if your business is more than 2 years old, now we know your business is over 2 years old, then you may be able to, or you, for this one, they qualify for, and business plus personal combo. Guess what? This person, if they combine their business credit cards with personal, that's $125,000 to $150,000. Think of that again, guys. I just said 125 to 100. I didn't say 20, 50,000 that can dry up like that. By what multiple? But what pace? 50 by 2 is 100. By 2 is 200. At what pace are you working, though? That's the question. Everybody's in a different situation. Business credit only. With 2+ years in business. 50,000 to 75,000. This is in no docs. 50 to 75,000. That's a range. Not saying it's set in stone, but that's what we've seen from the reports and everything that's been given. We've calculated to say that it can be at that amount. Now down here, if their business is less than 2 years old, business plus personal combo then becomes 100 minimum now to 125,000 maximum. So you could say a difference of 25, if not, well, yeah, 25,000 from the minimum and maximum ranges there. And then business credit only, if they only wanted to go in that direction with less than 2 years, then we work on around 35 to 60,000. But they have conditions that they have to meet. So they are eligible for this after in caps lock. Conditions that this person here is required to pre-qualify for any of the above. Their issue, it's not substantial depending on that alert, depending on where that's coming from. Can they get it removed right away? A lot of the times you can. And so this is just the fraud alerts. Resolution, remove all fraud alerts. TransUnion, of course. But for another person, it would have been something different. You can qualify for this after you drop down some part of that balance. Now, if you need to drop down a little bit of the balance, then we may be able to work with some consolidation loan, a quick payday loan. I know those aren't favorable. Like I said earlier, 4 to 6 months. Even if you got 3 months, you have to calculate it. When you have the results, you then think, this is how we all think. I'm very calculated. Okay, well, I want to drop my balance down on one of these. Can I drop it down and then reapply or come back? Yeah, I can pay this off in less than a month. I'm going to take at least 20,000. I'm going to use that to pay off 10,000. I'll be done quickly. Early payment discounts. Done. Now your credit got a boost. Depending on what you paid off, that utilization could have dropped and then raise your score. Did you transfer something over from an installment or from a revolving to an installment? So how much is it, though, that you exactly need? Oh, sorry. I see that. Okay. And if you didn't get 300,000 in funding, what would that number or range look like? Because in a market like today, especially when you're doing like personal creative credit-based financing, a lot of the times a max range we see, if the file looks completely good, can be upwards of 150,000 to begin with. A lot of the times it can just be with that with business credit, but a combination of, I see between 50 to 150, 50 to 100,000. You can see a lot of the times on average. So it just depends on what that client brings. I even see less than that, of course. And what are you using the 300,000 in funding for? I can only imagine, because I've come across situations like what you could use that funding for in a landscaping company. But if you're still here and you'd like to express one or two words or sentences, that'll be helpful for me to understand, because I can also see what maybe that return on investment could bring. What could it do to your cash flow? But again, it's about understanding the internal operations of your business that I'm not in. Now, if I were in day to day, like I've been for others in my past, younger 20s, of course, then I could see it more. I've done a lot of that for businesses. But regardless of that, if you could start off with less, would that help you? Because what you can do too, essentially, here's another cool thing, is go for, and we have to focus on debt to income and all these things. But if you just took the business credit cards, even personal funding, sometimes we can come back and try to do a revenue-based advance funding and try to get you as much there, because you're already generating, what was it, 140,000 in monthly revenue. Like at that range, you could potentially look for somewhere around 115, if not 120, up to close enough to 200,000, if possible, if not more than that, in the landscaping business. Because normally you get what, 75 to 200%, but in this market, you're always seeing maximum approvals as lenders are being more conservative to give up to normally 200,000 to begin with. But if you have a high cash flowing, like more income coming in than the expenses going out month to month and all these things that look good in the accounts, the average daily bank balances, breaking that $200,000 ceiling should be a piece of cake. But in a lot of construction companies, and this might be the case with your business, is there a lot more going out than what comes in, more income outflow or expense outflow than income inflow. And so without going, I guess, into all that, we'll just have to look at it and then determine if that's the direction you want to go into. But from those, what sounds more like something you'd want to venture in? I would, if I were you, business credit cards. Because you're going to need them. They're going to help you build your business credit. It's a no-brainer. And then later on, you're going to be thankful because, hey, now I can try to get an SBA loan. Now I can try to get, I'm more established. Now I'm building my actual trade credit. Because later on, at that amount, at that time in business, the credit is still an issue. But when that credit comes up, now depending on what those credit issues are, the timeline, but once that comes up, boom, we're rocking, excuse me. And right now, what's very popular, and I would have suggested this to you, but it's going to be hard, is the SBA boat loan up to $150,000 in working capital only. I would have recommended that for parts of what you need to use funding for. Now, for the equipment, marketing expansion is reasonable, hiring reasonable, because it's ongoing. And so I would have recommended that, and this would have been easy for you to go through and gone, okay, there's this business SBA loan, the boat loan. I'm helping out a lot of people. It's very popular now. Up to $150,000 working capital, as mentioned. And without collateral, no down payment, cash flow instability, like you could be reporting a loss, profit, all of this. But what you need is 700 plus credit. We'll factor in the credit scores of the owners. What to be factored into is 175 plus FICO SPSS business liquid credit. But which one of those would produce to you your highest ROI, or what percentage in gross profit margins will you get most out of by those uses of funds? If that makes sense. I'm sure you have like a pie chart or together spreadsheet. You understand what comes in, what goes out, how much you use of what return on investment. If you're putting $1 in, getting $2 out, are you going from $1 in to now $3 out? Because marketing budgets at $140,000 may have a huge marketing budget, but it's become more expensive, or you're trying to seek out new marketing income revenue generating streams to attract a newer market. These are all the things that I do too. So I'm leveling with you right now. I see all this stuff in my reports. I keep track of all my finances extremely well. And it took me a lot of time. Like many of you starting, I'm like, let me just get going. But yeah, for the marketing, I would have assumed that. Equipment would have been another one, but hiring can be as expensive too. But for where you need it most is for the marketing. Yeah, and without me going into it deeper, like I can ask you more questions on cost per lead or all this other stuff. But yeah, for marketing, a huge percentage of that would make it up. All right. And how much of it would you say, like out of that 300,000? You can email me. And then also, I didn't say it, I don't know if you heard me say this, but in the bio or in the questionnaire down below in the description, if it's on YouTube later, fill that out. I have a process. For those of you who are like, just call me, that's not how this works. It has to be given. It has to really make sense for me to do. And I've funded a lot of clients without me even getting on a phone call. And they trust me. I'm very loyal. We have that personal and business relationship already. And they're serious. And so you could email me. It is michael@viralfundingsolutions.com. First name, M-I-C-H, A as in Adam, E as in Edward, L. I look like the person from Disney Channel. You guys remember? You guys seen that? Or a child has? If so, or a niece? First name, M-I-C-H, A as in Adam, E as in Edward, L, at viral, something going viral, funding, like somebody's getting funding, solutions with an S at the end.com. Michael@viralfundingsolutions.com. And what I'll do is you can send me a quick email and say, hey, this is from TikTok and we spoke about this. Awesome. And so I'll send you the questionnaire to fill out at that point, or you can go to the bio, go to the questionnaire down below in the description if you see that in time. That's what I would fill out right away, because I pre-underwrite files immensely every single day. Once I'm done with this, I have about 3 hours. I'm going to start working on more of these questionnaires that I did in the beginning of the day. And so I'll send it back to you in an email/PDF format with what is your best option. So I'll show you the revenue base, the hybrids. I'll show you detail per detail. Like you're going to look at this email and go, damn. And how much time. And then secondly, I've iterated this and perfected this. Nothing's really ever perfected, but I'm always working on iterating this response, adding new things, subtracting, multiplying, dividing by that, and even showing you ballpark ranges for specific services, and showing you information that isn't even publicly released, things that I should be probably charging you for, things that sometimes the lenders don't want me to open up about, some things I can't always open up about, other things that are just not publicly released, and I can give it to you in an email/PDF format. And for you to be able to reuse that, priceless. It's going to be, I think, the most valuable thing you take from outside of my content or my value, who I am, why my business. But that PDF, and believe me, I'm very structured about this. And I know by looking at that, I may not ask for what you have in collateral or how much of that, but I'm going to show you detail per detail on what these lenders, the best lenders, are looking for. And if you have that, you can even get started from that PDF. Here's the documents, here's the details to it all. Boom. Divided, whether you can or can't qualify, you'll see it. You'll go, damn, I have no question now how I have to get to that SBA loan. I have no question of how do I get to that credit-based option. That's the best one. And I've scoured the internet to see what's best. And so going through that, you also have a conclusion and a roadmap at the bottom of that, some extra material to work with. And I'll give you a roadmap. I'll say, hey, right now, you have the revenue, let's say 140,000. This could be the projected amount received, depending on also when we look through the bank statements. That gives me more of an accurate representation. Then I can adjust after that, of course, but I can still pre-underwrite without the documents. And I do it very well. With documents, when I look at them, it's pretty much done. And so, and for the underwriters. So if I see that and I go, well, we can position, I'm going to position for you, and this is maybe how I start it. I'm going to position for you what I recommend in terms of credit-based financing. And I'm going to list everything you need to know about the unsecured business, which is non-collateralized business credit cards on top of non-collateralized personal funding, term/installment loans, sometimes personal lines of credit, etc. And you're going to see it and go, I could never have found this online, even if I took the time to. And this was not something that they're just going to share with me. And these lenders and providers, I'm constantly with them. And so they don't always share this with everybody else who's not asking for it. Or they don't just give it to somebody because they didn't ask for it. But because I'm in the trenches all the time, I even seen deals go from 18 months where somebody would have received that from someone else, where I helped somebody get 24 months because of that relationship. Now, it's the market. It's going to be harder to start off with 24 months if you're looking for those advances, unless it's collateralized. You're looking for 2+ years, then it's more of an unsecured bank term loan, or you're looking for the express loans of the world, the Bolt loans, the higher SBA 7A loans, equipment loans, and some other ones that are out there, of course. But at that moment, then I'll share with you, and I'll also show you. So it'll be lengthy. There will be a lot of pages on it. But no, don't feel overwhelmed. It might feel that way, believe me. But when you look through it, you'll know. This guy made my life easy. This is the easiest thing I've ever had to do. He's telling me that he's just showing me this PDF, and from there I can get started. Yeah, it's really that simple. Because I pre-underwrote the file. Yet all this time, all these other brokers out there, well, I'm not saying they're not as efficient. Maybe they're more extroverted. That's not my personality. So I had to find a way with my cerebral way of thinking. And I, night in, night out, would spend trying to figure that out, the process. Like, what would I do here? Should I do it this way? And so this gives us a lot of energy and time back. Does that make sense, guys? So if I were doing 20 to 30 calls a day, God, like, just think about it. Already with my personality, one, but then two, nobody would want to. I wouldn't want to put anybody in that position. Even if sales and doing calls is your thing. And not as in maybe it's your thing, but it's the thing you are doing to provide for yourself and your family. But who wants to be doing that? 20 minutes a call, now I got another one at 3 o'clock. Now, at what point does it make sense to do that is the question. Potentially, but you might not get as much because you're leveraging your revenue and you're leveraging credit more precisely. That could take a different avenue and an approach. But if you have the revenue and you have the credit, you have the partners to help with that, it's not about the terms. The terms are not the primary look. What matters most is your repayment. One, it's your use of funds, but then two, it's your repayment. If you could get a longer term to begin with better repayment, that's what people want, but not everybody can get it right now. So get a longer term repayment if you can. Drops your repayment, whatever that payment structure is, instead of getting a daily or a weekly. If that's not beneficial, and how you deposit in your business. Do you deposit, how many times do you deposit per week? Is it per day, or how is that? Yeah, and I can go on and on about CDFI lenders, but that's not where I wouldn't be even spending my time on that. The process of getting it, the amount of getting it per industry, with a few more things. But yeah, if you can look at it and go, you already have a couple partners. It's like, I would have locked on that like right away. Okay. So I'll keep it in mind. My goal for you guys is never to give you something that you don't want. But is that what you can only qualify for? Oh, okay. So even at a maximum, if you're doing 140K, 240K maximum, if not more, and at a minimum, yeah, it looks really good. You're passing that threshold. And so that's what lenders like to see. So if you were, I don't want to come back to this, and again, I don't want to be ever the person that tells you got to get 4 to 6 month terms, but if that were the case, in the next few months, if you were to take like 140,000, even if you got a max of 200,000, and then we added, because if you don't want to do a personal term loan, but if we could do 200,000 and then add business credit cards, that's how I would do it. That's how honestly I would do it. Like, forget the personal loan. If maybe that helps, if it doesn't, or if it doesn't get you approved for. If you want to focus on the shorter term, and we can try to extend that, we can be considerate of the other credit, but it'll be a little bit hard. But usually I beat most offers that are out there, myself and my team. That's how we do things. I have a lot right now that's actually coming in my inbox. My own lenders are actually emailing me, and I haven't responded. I have to go back to respond back to them before they head out of office. East Coast, some of them. But if that's the case, if that's what you're going to be taking that money and then making more money with, and in the next few months you're cash flowing even better, if that's the case, I would look at revenue-based financing, because you can get it like this. Credit-based, those cards and all that, although it is revolving, you might not get as much as if you were to do leveraging your performance of your revenue per month. You can leverage multiple credit partners to help you, but if you were to leverage just your revenue, the performance of it, and you can get it within 1 to 2, if not 1 to 5 days, depending on the file, sometimes same day, not always, usually within 1 to 2 days, especially the higher files and how extensively we have to look at. That's what I would focus on. So if you wanted to try, that's what I would recommend. It doesn't hurt to try, because it is a soft pull throughout the process, unless there's something very grasp or big that we have to look through. Usually it's just a soft pull. And so what I would do, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to position, I think, the hybrid revenue-based option. And then underneath that, I'll have like the credit-based. So I'll show you what that revenue-based option looks like and how fast you can get it. What potentially could be the range, and that's not set in stone. And the underwriting guidelines, I'll even show you, and what's the best of the best. By the way, be careful about the other lenders and other organizations. Don't be going out there and doing a lot, because it doesn't help you. Hurts you more than it does help you. And you don't know who you are turning to. I've seen blogs out there, people recommending certain companies, and I go, damn, they're crooks. Maybe they don't know how they work because they formed the partnership, and all that person cares about is getting a percentage paid for, but they don't know how the internal structure of that actual lender organization works. Like, you're screwing yourself over and you're screwing the business owner over. And so I could position that first. I may do that. And you'll see that revenue-based option. And then underneath that, I'll show you the credit-based. And then underneath that, I could show you, or in between that, the online bank term loans and a few more that won't work necessarily at this moment. And if you need the funds fast and you're going to make a quicker return from, and it's faster funding that you can get, that's the one. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns? Change in X, differentiation of. I'm just doing some like quick numbers here on my notepad. I'll let it go for a couple more minutes, or let's say less than a minute. Unless somebody has something, I'll stick around for a little bit longer. But I'm really bleeding into my time. I gotta look into this. I'm not sure why this happens. Okay, no. I have my laptop, and for some reason it stops scrolling, or when I start typing something, the words move up and down in the different places. I don't know if there's some malfunction or some configuration that needs to be done with the touchpad, and I have to go through the settings, but it's been happening a little bit recently. I've never had an issue like that. Maybe it's something that I'm sliding on that I'm not noticing that's causing that to happen. Like right now, it just happened. It's so weird. But right now, I'm looking at an email from a client who sent in their voided check. He needs to send in his May statements, which he's going to be sending them in today. This is real life stuff, guys. Like I can't show you it because it's confidential. But here's my laptop. Quickly, we're looking through the docs. It's confidential. But he said here he's sending the voided check, which has been sent over here. I haven't looked through it yet. Okay, that's sufficient. It has the name of that company there. And then the May statements he'll be sending in. Here, let me send this over. I'm gonna do some real life stuff here. If this mouse lets me do it. I'm very like organized when it comes to this stuff, guys. So just keep in mind, not only do I know how to analyze all this, but I also I've learned to make sure everything is well organized. Let me see here. Actually, I'm going to let this go. I'm going to make sure I want to finish that. Let's do 15 more seconds. Does anybody have anything? And if I did miss anybody, I do apologize, guys. I really do. I don't just say those things to say. I get moving a little bit on this. I am more of a slower talker. I'm not a sweet talker. So you don't have to worry about any of that. I laugh with people like that. Because you get people who are very like, in this field at least, that are very like suit and tie or slick hair back. Not all of them, but you gotta be careful. Okay, everybody, appreciate you. Oh, here's one. Des, good question. Let me read this. I just got my LLC and EIN. Congratulations on doing that. I know the process it takes for all of that. We can get funding without any income, correct? Income verification, stated income, they are possible. And like I spoke to that earlier today, now that you have an LLC and an EIN, and we can provide by an EIN letter and articles of organization, Secretary of State verifiable, copy of your driver's license, and a few things perhaps, then we could look at doing 0% interest business credit cards. And there's a few others out there, like an SBA loan, but it's going to be too soon for that, for an up to $25K. But it still takes a lot of an entrance point. But if you have like a recent job or you are in a current job now and you can provide those pay stubs and you can provide what you need to verify income, at least 35K, if not 50K, then we can potentially work at a personal term/installment loan. So there still has to be at that point for that creative-based solution, income verification of adjusted gross income, annual gross revenue, we could say. But yeah, they're going to want to see at least something. Like they're not going to lend you an installment. Nobody's going to lend you without being able to verify some kind of eligibility in revenue, even stated income. Like even when they say it's stated income, don't take always their word for it. Then they're asking for now 3 months of personal, 3 months of business bank statements. Oh, you've been in business this enough time. And it can help you make a better case for what you can get approved for, of course. But every lender only wants to know these things. Can you pay us back? To what happens if you don't pay us back? Sure, they may care a little bit about how you use the funds. It matters to me immensely because it makes a big difference on how you use those funds, of course. Like what percentage, like we spoke about today. I can go deeper into all that. But now it makes sense to me. What is that huge budget going to? Boom, makes sense. Let's do 20 more seconds. I was going to say 30, but 20. I'm going to try to leave my office here soon, though. I might do some questionnaires for about an hour. Try to get at least 5 to 15 of them done. It does take me a little bit for each. So whenever you do get yours back, I would greatly appreciate it if you look through it. This is a skill set that I apply. It's like anybody applies a skill set to their business. This is a huge skill set of mine that I apply to this one. So I'd be very grateful that if you look through it, consider it. And feedback. Feedback matters to me, being open-minded and patience. Those are the three that mean a lot to me. I'm very loyal, guys. You don't have to worry about me, like I said. But just make sure you're there and when it counts, and even when it doesn't count, when there's no game or there's no scoreboard keeping track of how many points. Show up to practice. Show up for that walk, show up for that jog in any part of your life, not just in business, because your character, as you evolve your character, it does make a big difference and change in your business. Your health, your relationships, that's where it all starts. And there are other categories. That's where I look to make more of an effect on people than just getting business financing and increasing their wealth in their business, increasing their wealth in themselves, increasing what they take home, increasing their health and relationships at home. Being better of a person, that matters immensely. Living a more energy and time effective life, because we don't have that much time in this world. We have to be thankful for being here each and every day. Wake up each and every day, as I do. Pray. I meditate. I do my stretching. Depending on the day, I'll jog a little bit. Maybe lift weights on a Monday morning, do some chest, do some biceps. And then get into meditation for a little bit. I stand up before that and I do mindfulness. I say 3 things that I'm grateful for and thankful for. I say hi to the people that are no longer, that I miss, and everybody else up above that can't be with us here physically, but in spirit. Because those things, they matter. They increase your desire for wanting more. And every day, it doesn't pass my mind. A day goes by where grandma, grandpa, and others, and more recently is the loss of my dog brother of 15 years having the latest stages of kidney disease. That was one of the hardest days of my life, because as strong as I am and emotionally controlled, that day broke me into a million pieces. On the inside, I was dying. And because being so close to him, especially in his last year or two, how much I saw of him and being around him coming into the room here, just relaxing, a little toy poodle, coolest dog, very good dog. But when he would see people or hear the doorbell ring, he'd start barking. I miss him tremendously. But he's another reason why I do what I do, because seeing something so raw, seeing something that they give you unconditional love, and having that attachment that I didn't think I would have had, or I tried to push away from, but I grew so close to. On my breaks, relaxing with them, hanging out with them, looking out the window while he's on the couch and I'm on the couch relaxing, looking through a few things. He's looking out the window. Just taking him outside, inside, front yard, backyard, holding him. And the last day I had to hold him before we had to put him down on Monday morning, we didn't think we'd have to go in that day. I sat with him, myself and him alone in another room. And he was at the point where he couldn't breathe. He couldn't even digest food, didn't want to digest food. And we wouldn't want him to continue down that. And so having him here, I just spoke into him. It's going to be okay. One day we will see each other again. And I told him, hey, say hi to my grandma, my grandpa, and everybody up above, your dog family. It's going to be okay. And he just kind of me having him here gave him a lot of comfort. And he was going like this because of his breathing. But he just calmed down. In my arms, he literally calmed down. I hadn't seen him that calm in a while. Like he found peace. Like he had already found peace, but he was just even more at peace, me having him here. And days before that, of course, time before, he would like sit on the bed or elsewhere and he would just kind of stare out into the distance. Like he was looking up, like he was accepting of, like he couldn't do more of. And so he was already accepting. Like it was like he was speaking to somebody up above. Like somebody was giving him these signals. And he came to terms with it. He gave us a lot of love, our family a lot of love. And that was a time. And it's just happened recently. Like, what is it, a year ago? February of last year? Or the year before that, yeah. It was really hard. I don't want to go into that more, guys. I don't want to, trying to hold it in. But thank you, guys. Appreciate you all. No more questions, no more comments. I will see you all in the next one. Have a great rest of your afternoon/evening, wherever you are in the world. And I will talk to you all on the next one. Take care. Bye.